Hi, everyone, and welcome to Students Speak, conversations with our postgraduate students from the MA in Creative Arts. My name is Yvonne Weeks, and I'm a lecturer in theatre and also the coordinator of the MA in Creative Arts. We're going to have a very engaging conversation this evening, and it will include just a look at the arts and the way the artist has a role to play in the Republic. Now, even though we have students in the program from St. Lucia and from Montserrat, and we've had students from Antigua, Bahamas, and Jamaica, we know that self-determination, nationalism, and just the role of the artist in recalling history and our memories, as Kemal Brathwaite so rightly says in his own poetry, are vital to us as nations. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce you. I'm going to ask the students to introduce themselves very briefly, and then we'll get into the conversation. So we'll start with Paul. Paul has been a part-time student. So Paul.
Hi, good night to all. I'm glad to be here. I am a music teacher and I've been at the Arabara Center for Creative Imagination for a long time. I started in 2012 and I did my bachelor's part time. I'm now back for my MA in creative education, and I'm happy to be, discussing this topic with everyone and sharing the knowledge I've gained so far.
Thank you, Paul. And then we move to the lady in red, the beautiful Paula Ann.
Good evening. My name is Paula Ann Jackman, and I started the MA Creative Arts in September 2021. And I'm coming from the Bachelor in Arts and Entertainment Management at BCC, actually. So I'm new to the Capel campus and enjoying the journey so far.
Thank you. And we have Salim, and he doesn't normally look this brisk in my classes, but tonight he's looking absolutely spiffing. Salim, see how embarrassing him. Go ahead, Salim.
Hey, good night. My name is Salim Small, and I'm doing the Creative Arts program with the MA, specializing in the arts educator route. My undergrad is in dance at EBCCA, so from going from the undergrad to going to the MA, it was an easy route for me because I know I wanted to complete my MA in Creative Arts.
Thank you. So those are our speakers for this evening. And I'm going to give you some very difficult questions. And the first question is, we know that the Caribbean has a lot of problems. We have economic problems. We have problems with COVID now. We have problems in terms of our education system and tourism and culture. And there are curriculum researchers who believe that it is within the curriculum that we can solve problems. How do you think the arts can address some of the Caribbean problems? And we'll start with Salim, and then we'll go to Paula, and then we'll end with Paul. Salim.
How can the arts address the Caribbean problems? Well, to me, art is very much social. Matters if it's dance, if it's theater, if it's music, if it's spoken word, if it's poetry, if it's literature. It's very much a social thing. And not many people in the Caribbean, no, not many people in the world really listen to news and listen to politics, etc. So they don't really get their information from that avenue. But many of us, whether we do it subconsciously or even consciously, intake art, no matter the form. So with art, it could be a very much way of expanding and really touching a lot of bases in terms of what the Caribbean problems. So with art, plus it gives a different avenue. It really touches on the emotions. It touches on the expression, etc. And we all know that when you are touching on the emotions, you tend to gravitate and you tend to pull more people into the whatever problem that they're experiencing. So for the Caribbean, for art is a very great way to highlighting the showcasing the problems within the Caribbean, and also as a byproduct, putting people into action from seeing the art.
Bob Marley suggests in his songs that we have to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. And we know that as artists, we're making observations, we're being awakened by things that are happening around us, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's what's going on in terms of poverty or just even the cost of living. I know Paul can talk about all the calypsos that have been written, which talk about the cost of living in terms of the social commentary in the Picardy crop. So we're talking about how the arts can address Caribbean problems. And so we're going to Paula and then Paul.
Hi again. So when I was thinking about it as Celine was speaking, I said, well, that's a really big question because we're a big region and we have big problems. So I said to myself, one of the big problems that I would choose to zero in on is, to me, we have an issue with identity. And we would hear persons even say in this locale, oh, Barbados ain't got no culture. And I could see the arts helping with that, because through the arts, you can start to discover identity, yours and your fellow man across the region. And even in terms of, I think most of the time in terms of business for the creative arts, because that's my background, even though I'm in the arts educator track now. But as I think about how then we market ourselves as a region and make money from our identity, it helps if we know ourselves, and the arts helps with that. It helps us to see our amorphous nature and not pin ourselves or pigeonhole ourselves, and helps us to just examine and express our identity.
Thank you, Paula.
Hi.
And we go to Paul. Yes.
Yes. Continuing from what those our two first students were stated, I totally agree. Art has a significant and unique way of presenting information to the masses. It really touches on the emotion, as Celine would have stated, and it brings the emotion through entertainment. As Dr. Beats would have mentioned previously about the social commentary calypso music, which is in, I guess, that main social commentary music that we thought was just towards calypso music, but it's actually in a lot of music that we listen to in different genres within the Caribbean itself. In dancehall, you actually get a lot of social commentary music coming out, bashment soca, the soca music. So they get the expression of what the people are saying. And this is something that we've been seeing or has been documented through history. You recognize that slaves would sing on the plantation with the issues that they had, and they would, express them to themselves and to those around them, and it motivated them and pushed them through the hard times. So it is something that we can utilize that came from the past, that we can utilize to take us through this time with our republic as Barbadians, and as other countries may come through a republic status, that they can motivate through their problems and their issues.
There are those who say that the arts should be central to schools' curriculum. And we know that the curriculum is both a written curriculum and a hidden curriculum, and there's all kinds of different curriculum happening. What is your take on this idea that arts need to be central to our education and to our ways of looking at schooling? We'll go with Celine.
I would say it's a very pivotal thing that needs to be in education, because as Paula said, one of the Caribbean problems is identity, and using art as a means through education, through just way of life, just through really putting more value on art itself, you could really get identity. What identity is, because art is very much, it's an inward thing, but it's very much still research, because and research is looking through the history and looking through how you want to go forward in life. And with education, once you put art in it, it really makes you a whole person, I would say. Like many times we as humans, we as a society don't really value art. So then we miss out on the things that art can give us in terms of more self-esteem, more self-expression, better relationships with people, better just overall better sorry for me saying this, but I guess personality. um so arts and education is very much something that's important and something that's very much I've seen, well, I can only speak for Barbados, but it's some that's very much lacking in the from the early ages in terms of like nursery, primary, even secondary school, because it's not really in secondary school either. It's only mostly like I think full farm and fifth farm, because my introduction to arts wasn't even in school in terms of secondary school. It was more so in like community college. Not even that. It was my dad. It's my dad that really told me about dance and told me about the arts program, the dance program that was at BCC. So there really needs to be more emphasis in on art and how it could really help us as a society to find our identity.
I always tell Celine that his dad is a very special parent because lots of parents don't really support their children doing the arts. They they question, what are you going to do with it? What job are you going to do? But education for jobs is really a thing of the past. We're no longer in that kind of society anymore. We're now trying to figure out how we can reconstruct the society so that all children benefit and not just those who can pass examinations, CXCs or CAPE. Paula, what is your view about art as pivotal to education? Now that you're in the program, what are some of the lessons you
Yes.
want to share with those who are listening?
Once joining the program, I have actually gained an affinity for interdisciplinary instruction. So I see arts as central to the program, especially now I know how many different types of learners exist. And why can't we use visual arts to teach religious knowledge? Why can't we use music to teach math or dance to teach health science? Again, Paul said earlier that the arts helps things be easier consumed. So why can't we make the arts central since we're leaving school and consuming film, animation, and theater and dance and enjoying it much more than we are enjoying the pure and applied sciences, etc. No offense to the other faculties. But if it was central to the other things we're learning, perhaps learning could come easier to us, and perhaps teaching for those of us who want to educate could even be a little bit more fun.
And Paul?
I totally agree with you, Paula. As a teacher myself, I'm teaching for the last 10.5 years. So I've seen some students who were, quite reserved. And after they got to the stage where they're able to pursue particular subjects in art, for example, we had film studies, photography studies, music, visual arts, some in woodwork, really, creating different things. You see them being able to express themselves in ways we never thought. You see them in the academic subjects that they're trying, but it really not getting to them and how them to get to what they like. So you found that you saw the smiles, you saw what they would like to do and how they would get to that point. And that's why I think art in education is quite important, because it gives students a way to express themselves through a platform. Students are only able to present how they feel in particular ways. You see the how students excel in the math and English, which is quite important. But then there's some students who are really good at music, and as a music teacher myself, I've seen students who've excelled. And I have a student that is currently doing his bachelor's at the Arabara Center in music, and it makes me feel good that this student who was, seen as a troublemaker at school and is now, excelling in that field. And it isn't that we want every single student to be an artist, but we want them to have an appreciation for the art forms, that they would have seen how it would benefit each person, because we're in a classroom writing each day, we're going back into face to face. You're writing each day, but the arts gives them the opportunity to do something, shape something, express themselves, make something from them, from their talents and what they have to offer. So art has a very, very key role in education in Barbados and across the Caribbean.
Thank you, Paul. Recently, we invited the poet laureate Esther Phillips to come and speak to one of the courses that you guys are in, the community arts, and she shared with us her awakening, and the awakening was her concern of what's happening in Drax Hall, an area that she grew up in as a child, a tenantry, and she's writing these amazing poems as a response to that whole issue of reparations for the descendants of the slaves who worked on Drax Hall, which was the largest plantation. So we understand that the arts can have a role in activism. What is your take on how you see yourself as young artists? I hope I can say young artist, despite the fact Paul has taught for 10 years, in terms of the arts addressing issues of social justice. And we're going to start with Paul, Salim, and then Paula.
Well, art addressing social injustice has been going on for a very long time. As we've been educated about, the Poor Man's newspaper and social commentary calypso music played a significant role in educating masses about issues that may be going on. And even up to this day, although we have COVID-19 and the pandemic may have hampered that particular genre, we found that many artists, not only in music, but any genre, would have been able to express how others may be feeling and how they may, whatever issue they may be going through. And as I've pointed out to particular individuals, yes, we have the calling programs, down to brass tacks. But those things are just in that moment. But art stays for a lifetime. Lifetime. We have artists who've been producing music for a while, and you can play those songs again and again, and it may resound the issues we have now. For example, the Jack song from Gabby. He spoke about um, this issue about the sea being taken away from Barbadians. And recently, I can't remember how many years ago, we had the issue at a particular beach. And similarly, how we brought that same song back to life and that particular art piece to life to represent a particular injustice in Barbados. So it's quite important that this art, remains active in producing something for, represent, I guess, the downtrodden and those who may have an issue that may be going on in their community, in their family, in the country, or in the region that is.
And even more recently, I think there was an issue where where our ambassador was actually prevented from going on a beach, or and he was given an apology. But so the song has resonates even more now, because it's not an issue that has died. Yeah. Celine, what is your take on it?
My take on it, even kind of expanding further on Paul's point of how Jack played a very pivotal role in basically shedding light on that issue, because I feel like I mean, I wasn't alive at that time. Well, yeah, I wasn't alive at that time. But I'm sure many people weren't aware of the issue. They probably were aware of the issue, but weren't really doing anything about the issue. But once Gabby talked about it and really spread it and really made that song popular, I would say it kind of created a conversation. And then you could even look at the outcomes of what happened. The outcomes from that, like how that rule was kind of eradicated because a lot of people were basically putting up private beaches at that time. But now, looking at Barbados now, you can see there's no private beach. No matter if it's a hotel there, they must have an access for the public to reach the beach. So even looking at that, how art can be very, going back to my earlier point for one of your questions, how art can really open your mind, the public's mind, to something that they didn't necessarily know was a problem. Whether you like the art or whether you love the art, what it does, it creates a conversation between the public to find solutions, to talk amongst themselves. So art as social justice is very much something that's very important. Because even for me, my I guess my social justice, what I want to do for my whole life in terms of like is change the stigma around men that dance. Because there's a stereotype and there's a stigma of men that who dance, specifically styles of like ballet and modern, which are like predominantly um have a lot of women in it, and how men in that kind of field is perceived to be a certain way. So that is one thing I would love to do through my art, through the workshop, just through starting conversations to basically let society see how, even though we're in 2021, we still have these traditional roles and traditional values that are really stifling because we as men and women, we are not traditional in the mass, but we are still held up to these same traditional standards which are kind of stifling us.
So the arts can blur all of these stereotypes, can remove these boundaries that box people in. Paula Ann?
Well, to add to what my colleagues are saying, I almost see the creative in society as a social worker, and the same way how a social worker is there to create access and opportunities for members of society, especially the most vulnerable, so too do artists create bridges across cultural imaginaries and create voice for the voiceless and do it in a way that is so palatable. Some people might not even realize that they are becoming part of a social justice movement by singing this song all the time or humming this verse all the time. And I really support you, Celine, in what you're saying about creating a cause as you create your art. And I feel the same way in terms of business for creatives. For too long, the ideal of a starving artist was something that people aspire to. I'm saying no, that you can be an amazing artist and have money on the bank. And here is how. And I can't wait to graduate the program and do some free workshops. And here is how to do invoices and estimates. And here are apps you can use. We will not be starving anymore.
Yes, we will not be starving anymore. Thank you, Paula Ann. And so, Barbados has recently become a republic. And I don't where are we as the artists going to fit into this new this new form of government? Because it's basically that although we do not govern ourselves, you know, even though this is a direct democracy, this is a way of modern representation where, if, The government has supreme power. Sorry, the supreme power is held by the people and their elected representatives. Now, some people might say, "Oh, Dr. Weeks, you're being very idealistic. How does the artist?" And we have to also recognize that the artist is used a lot in messaging, in communicating, as entertainers, as advocates. And we saw evidence of this around the time of the elections, but now elections are over. How is the artist going to fit into this new republic? What are the special things that you see that are going to happen? We'll start with Salim, Paul, and end with Paula.
Are the special things that we're going to be seeing in the coming times? I would say even going back to Paula's point of identity, because being a republic now, we basically now have to we create our identity away from the queen, and art and artists is very much culture. So we as artists and art will have to create new cultures of how we want to see our new identity as a republic. So I believe in the coming times we will see a lot of more. But even with the Golden Square, the Golden Square is very much even though it's very much a political thing, it's very much an artist thing too. Very much art, because there's a lot of art within the how it's designed, the images, the wall of the names, all of that is art, and all of that is in creating our own identity. So I believe that if done right, artists are really gonna shape the identity of Barbados as a republic.
How do you feel about Golden Square personally as a young Barbadian?
Personally, as a young Barbadian, I feel like it does something. It creates more life within Bridgetown, because Bridgetown at night was very much a dead spot. There wasn't really anything happening in Bridgetown at night. People were just getting off the vans to go in another van to go home. But now we are seeing a lot more people standing in Bridgetown, standing in Golden Square. And I feel with Golden Square, this creates more opportunity for more nightlife. So you might even see more businesses popping up, because Golden Square creating a hub for more people to come online and more people to come and just play sports, etc., and just look at the art. So with that, I believe you would see more businesses popping up in the area just to fill the whole vibe of creating a Bridgetown and actually having a nightlife in the city.
An artist is central to that. Okay. And
Yes.
Paul?
In terms of the identity, what I would add is that not to find our identity, I think we need to realize our identity, because I believe we do have an identity, but it is lost within so many different identities from media imported from different larger countries, in specifically
Yeah,
American culture.
right.
You recognize that the media that dominates our airways generally from abroad, and I guess I'm happy that we were able to focus some more regarding having a Bajan only radio station. I know that individuals over time can hear and constantly hear Bajan music. I recognize that on the local television station CBC, they have been playing a lot more local music. You were hearing it before, I guess, the most active time on that television station, which is before the news and after the news. Um, So recognizing this identity and putting it to use is something that I've been doing as well. I didn't wait to the Republic time to want to do it. As a teacher myself, I've been educating my students mainly in Caribbean and Barbadian music, and then the music from abroad that became a side topic. And previously that was the opposite. We used to put our music from abroad as the main topic and Caribbean music as a side topic. So now the main focus in my class is specifically to learning about our identity in music, performing that music, understanding that music, and still understanding the role it played in, I guess, how foreign music played a role in our Caribbean music. Because there was, the creolization of music in the Caribbean stems from European instruments, European harmonies, the African rhythms, and our Caribbean traditions. So you still have to teach them about these different things. But to me, it's very important that our main and our identity is the main focus in our classroom, especially in the creative arts. I can say, for example, that whenever our students perform the Caribbean music within the classroom or on stage in our hall or in any event that any other student can hear, we then tend to create a crowd. A crowd will come around and start to listen. What is it that we are doing in this classroom? And I found that is something that's quite important. Once students are engaged within Caribbean identity on a regular basis, they're more engaged, and they're more likely to want to engage in it themselves and want to learn about it. So it has to be consistent. So the consistency with the radio station, consistency with the television station, consistency in the classroom, then over time it will resonate in their minds, and they will then at some point, maybe not now, but later on in their life, they will say, well, I remember this particular rhythm, I remember this particular phrase, this particular genre of music. So then it becomes something that they will know, but this is something Barbadian.
Thank you very much, Paul. Kemal Brathwaite said that it was his 8 years in Ghana in which he kind of had an awakening. Do you think that the Republic is doing that for artists, Paula Ann? Do you think that suddenly we might be beginning to think in different ways about our writing, our poetry, our plays, our songs, even our dances? Do you think that the Republic is an awakening for us as artists, or is it just business as usual?
It's definitely not business as usual, and that connects perfectly with what I was thinking in terms of when I was thinking about the role of the artist in the New Republic. Because how did we know it was the period of enlightenment when we look back through recorded history? How did we know it was the industrial era? We know because of what was being done by the artists, the poems that were written, what Picasso was drawing, the music that was being written. So in years to come, people will know what was happening at the time of the New Republic because of what Paul's students will be writing on calypso stages, and what Salim's students will be dancing and performing from this era when they look back through history. So I don't see it as business as usual. We're each having all of these navigations, as my colleagues are saying, of identity. And what story are we telling now? Are we still telling the same story in terms of CARICOM reparations and reparations in general? Or is our advocacy now our success? What do we do next? How do we transform and reform? Are we looking at a new version of the Taliban? Are we, how do we get this story to be told to a generation that we cannot get off of a laptop? So I think we really are at a turning point in history, and the role of the artist is to record and reflect and agitate for change.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. So you've heard from the MA Creative Arts students, and what I'm going to do now is ask them to just say some final words about that kind of captures all that they feel they have gained from doing this course, and they're all at different stages. I think Paul has 2 courses left. Paula is going to come back and spend another semester with me, I think, because she's part-time, and Salim probably has 4 courses left. But what would you say is like the aha moment where you thought, this is why I'm doing this course. This is how I'm going to contribute to the New Republic. Salim, Paul, and then Paula. That aha moment when you said, this is the reason I'm doing this program, because this is what I'm going to contribute to the New Republic.
I would say I had that aha moment probably last semester around midterm. And that aha moment came in research methods in the arts. And for me, as bad as it sounds, I didn't know what I wanted my life to look like, even after going through all that school in terms of undergrad and everything. But it was in the MA program and listening to how the different lecturers, the different students from the different countries, and just hearing them talk. We tend to forget that even though we are from different islands, that we share a very similar story. So in research methods in the arts, me trying to find my proposal that I was going to do for the course, I looked back at my undergrad thesis, which was called masculinity, MASQUE, culinity. That's how it's spelled. So looking back at that, it was like an aha moment. And then writing the aha moment came, and it was writing the research proposal, the lit review. And I was coming on to the last line, or the last line, but like probably the second last paragraph or the third last paragraph, and I had the aha moment where it was like, I want to change society, how society view men. I will be using it through dance, but I want to change it. Want to change how society view men in general, and how trying to not have a concrete mold of what a man should be, what a real man should be, because we hear a lot how a real man should act, what a real man should do. So that was my aha moment. Now, I would say one thing that's very important for me in doing the MA program was connections with students, connection with the lecturers, connections with the professional practice, the internships that we had to do, and that was very pivotal, because with that, it showed me that how this world is married, but it's more so based on the people you know too. And once you have a good merit and you have a good connection, then anything isn't impossible for you to accomplish in your life. It may be hard. I mean, most things are hard to do, but it's a very great program. I would say that's really what I found, where I found myself. So yeah.
Ah, he found himself. Thank you so much, Salim. Paul?
Yes, so my aha moment. So I'm a trained teacher, so therefore I went through the process of doing what we call the diploma education at Urdeston. But I found that program, despite having a musical aspect to it, majority of my courses were, I guess, surrounded around education in a broad format. But the aha moment really came when I focused mainly on the creative arts in this program. So in that, although I did learn a lot about teaching in general and from Urdeston, this course focused mainly on my particular um, subject area in music and in creative arts. Some particular theories that I learned within some of my classes that really resonated with me, on how we should utilize this knowledge to gain and to construct on students' knowledge, and build on it. Something that we need to recognize in our republic. The idea of building on the knowledge of students from what they or who they come from, where they came from. So, for example, they may be built on Caribbean stuff, Caribbean norms, and we build on that norm so they can learn based on what their community is teaching them, their family is teaching them, things that they know already, and building on it even more through the creative arts itself. And that's quite important and something that I really took from it, because sometimes I was thinking to myself, how much can I improve on the way I teach my students, specifically in the creative arts. I find a lot of stuff is geared towards the academic areas, but that practical area, that creative arts area is kind of lacking. So therefore, the creative arts MA in education really did something for me that I learned a lot from it.
So in the context of a lot of the new proposals that the current government is making about getting rid of the common entrance and having middle schools and having schools of excellence, how would you locate yourself as a music teacher with all of the proposed changes to education that that the government wishes to implement?
Well, unfortunately, I have not been made aware of exactly the proposal. Um, I like change. I like when you're thinking that okay, something isn't working, so let's change. I found that sometimes we just remain the same because we're afraid of change. We're afraid that what you may change to may not work. I'm just waiting to see what are the specifics to creating this change and how it would work for our students. I think we need a lot of um, consideration for what those on the ground are going through and how they can present their particular proposal towards the government and how we should change things. I hope that we're not going to conduct this particular change in a way from a top-down approach. I think that we need to be quite inclusive of every single aspect, included the students themselves, not only teachers, but students also have a voice in their own education. So I'm eagerly awaiting what this change will be like.
Thank you, Paul. Paula Ann?
So I was tossing up between the four subjects I did last semester because, as you said, this is my second semester in the program, as to where my aha moment occurred, because I know there was one, but I was wondering exactly where it occurred. And I was between theorizing Caribbean art and aesthetics, because something happened where my level of critical thinking, well, my ability to think critically about culture just shifted. I cannot pinpoint exactly where it happened, but it was probably around the time where I realized that I am writing this essay on post colonial feminist thought and examining a local film. And previously, it was something I would always tell my friends I dabble in the arts. I am not an expert. I am not a classically trained dancer or pianist or anything. I just know I like it and I have things to say. So somewhere in aesthetics and theorizing Caribbean arts, I found my voice and I found where people like me are able to speak. And that was really pivotal for me. And then I would also say it's the level of mentorship. I feel like if I can reach out to any of my tutors, even from last semester, and say, I am thinking about XYZ or I'm looking at XYZ, and they would respond to me and have an open discourse with me, even though that last semester is gone. So I would definitely recommend anybody who is in the arts and is not quite sure of their place, like me, to come and give the MA Creative Arts a try. And Dr. Weeks knows that in my first week, I was like, well, I'm not a teacher. I am not a dancer. What am I even doing here? My background is media and marketing. And I definitely had my aha moment and found my place and space. And it was good for my soul, really.
Great. So you've been listening to Salim Small, Paul Forde, and Paula Ann Jackman talk about their place as arts educators and as artists and as art entrepreneurs. in the Republic. What they really want to see is more inclusion. Paul, for example, doesn't want to see a top-down approach to any changes in education, but he welcomes the changes. Paula Ann recognizes that forming, shaping our identity, representation of ourselves across all of the art forms are critical. And Salim, in his aha moment, recognizes at least one social issue, that is the way men are, the narrative about men, and that the arts have a pivotal role to play in that dialogue, in that discourse, and in that exchange of ideas. Thank you very much for being with us. My name is Yvonne Weeks. This has been Students Speak.